TNA Sacrifice 2011 pay-per-view review. The pay-per-view just went off there. And I gotta say, for this TNA pay-per-view, it was pretty much what you expect going into the pay-per-view. When you looked at the card, I don't think many of us were expecting anything great. So it at least wasn't one of those pay-per-views where the card was stacked and then you're really disappointed. It was pretty much what you expected. A below-average pay-per-view, pretty much a throwaway show from TNA. And especially the way they built this pay-per-view up and where the pay-per-view is pretty much within the year. They got it in May. They got it pretty much sandwiched in between two of TNA's biggest shows, TNA Lockdown Slammiversary. So TNA doesn't really ever try on this pay-per-view. With this, I would say, the TNA X Division title match was good, even though the ending was kind of weak, and I thought they should have been given a little more time. The stuff with Karen and Jeff Jarrett versus Kurt Angle and Chyna, it was at least watchable. It wasn't, as bad as what I was expecting. I was expecting a whole lot worse, especially, since Chyna hasn't been in the ring in a long time. She was pretty rusty in the ring, but they booked it in an okay way where she was not in the ring that much, and it was pretty much Jeff Jarrett and Kurt Angle in there, and them two have very good chemistry, so it at least was a watchable match. And the main event with Sting versus RVD was actually a whole lot better than I was expecting. I wasn't expecting much from them two. It wasn't by far any great main event or something, but I thought it was at least a decent to good match for the main event with RVD and Sting, especially since I wasn't expecting much from it. So that did somewhat deliver, especially with my expectations being pretty low for that match. But let me get into the pay-per-view. The first matchup was Mexican America versus Ink Inc. This was a okay opener. Ink Inc., Shannon Moore, and Jesse Neal, they pretty much made this match, especially Shannon Moore. They at least made it into a watchable match. Nothing too special here. Anarchia, don't like him at all. He's terrible. And they just need to stop this stable with Mexican America. It's not working. And just, fire Anarchia and bring back Homicide and put back together LAX. That would be a whole lot better to do with Hernandez, and you would have a very good tag team right there, other than this Mexican American stable that is just not working at all. Ink lose this match when Hernandez pins Jesse Neal in this match. I will say about a 2 1/4 star match. Then the next matchup was Robbie E versus Brian Kendrick. This was an okay match. Brian Kendrick, he definitely is not the good wrestler he used to be back in the day. He's not that entertaining anymore. I like his character. I think that's pretty good. But, him and Robbie E, just like Robbie E, I hate the whole Jersey Shore stuff. And actually, Robbie E, a.k.a. Rob Echoes, is actually a pretty decent performer. Just this character, I think, hurts him a lot. It was a decent match, watchable. Brian Kendrick picks up the win in this match. Then the next matchup was Mickie James versus Madison Rayne for the TNA Knockouts Championship. If Mickie James won this match, Tara was free from Madison Rayne, and this was the match I think they probably should have had at TNA Lockdown instead of having that very short 5-second match pretty much where Mickie James hits DDT and picks up the victory. It probably would have been better if Mickie James would have won the title in this type of match, because it actually wasn't too bad of a women's match. You obviously knew what the ending of the match was leading to. Tara was going to come out there, be involved, which she was out there. She got involved. At the end of the match, she got the loaded glove. Madison Rayne tried to bring it into the ring, use it on Mickie James. She grabbed it from her, put it on, was kind of like teasing that she was going to hit Mickie James, and obviously we knew the way it was going to go. She hit Madison Rayne, and then Mickie James pins her, so Mickie James won this match, and Tara is free for Madison Rayne. So now maybe we'll get some good women's feud between Tara and Mickie James, because Mickie James and Madison Rayne, especially since they dragged out so long, Mickie James finally won the title last month. They need to do something good to have her in a good women's title feud, and I think her and Tara could have very good women's matches in TNA. Then the next matchup was probably the match of the night, which with this pay-per-view really wasn't, quality-wise that many good matches, so it's not really saying much. This was a good match of the night or anything, but it was a pretty entertaining, decent match. This was Max Buck versus Kazarian for the X Division Championship. Saw some good back-and-forth action with them, too, some good mat work at the start. Pretty much Max Buck, he pulled out everything in this match. He hit the 450. Then Kazarian, he finally picks up the victory. after he reverses a roll through pin and then hits a Shining Wizard to Max Buck to retain the X Division Championship, which the ending pretty much came out of nowhere. I didn't think the match was going to end as quick as it did, and I think they should have been given a little more time than what they were, but it was a solid match. One of the matches on this pay-per-view that if you do check out anything here, this is one of those things I would say is worth checking out. It was at least a pretty decent match. Just wasn't as good as what I was expecting. I was expecting a great match, and I just got a pretty good match. Then the next matchup was Abyss versus Crimson. Not much of a match here. I mean, it wasn't a terrible match, but I just really couldn't get into it. Crimson, he picks up the victory in this match. And about probably 1 3/4 stars, 2-star match. Not much to talk about there. Then the next matchup was Matt Hardy and Chris Harris versus Beer Money Incorporated for the TNA Tag Team Championships. It was kind of cool to see Chris Harris back, but the one thing is, TNA, please be smart and don't do something stupid. Keep Beer Money Incorporated together. Keep James Storm and Robert Roode together. And as much as I would, probably a few years ago, I would have loved to see a reunion of America's Most Wanted, back together in TNA. But Beer Money has pretty much surpassed what Beer Money, not Beer Money, but what America's Most Wanted did in TNA. And Beer Money is so over, it'd be stupid to break them up. So I'm hoping they don't do that. And I wouldn't mind seeing Chris Harris, be there for a little bit, and he can be there just for a little bit in TNA. But I don't really care. I really wouldn't have him stay around. Probably he's okay, but the best thing about him was as far as how good he was. That's in the past. He's not much of a good performer anymore. And the best thing with him was him and James Storm teaming up back in the day in America's Most Wanted. TNA, please don't break them up and do that. This was a decent tag match. I thought it was somewhat enjoyable, seeing Chris Harris and James Storm take on each other in this match. They did okay with each other. Robert Roode did some good stuff. Matt Hardy was okay. So this was a decent tag match. Nothing too special. Not anything too great. It was kind of cool the way the match ended, where Beer Money Incorporated used AMW's old move, the Death Sentence, to Chris Harris to pick the victory up, with James Storm pinning him. And I would say about a 2 1/4, maybe 2.5-star match. It wasn't too bad of a match. The next matchup was Tommy Dreamer versus AJ Styles. This was a match that, AJ Styles needs to be put into something a whole lot better than these feuds with Tommy Dreamer or Bully Ray. I mean, maybe him and Bully Ray could possibly pull off a good match with each other, but these Tommy Dreamer matches aren't that good at all. They had one that was pretty decent. This one I just really couldn't get into. Just like a lot of this pay-per-view was a lot of boring matches, or matches that at the best were just watchable. And this was just another one of them. Not anything too great in here. Bully Ray came out there. He got involved, pretty much cost AJ the match, with Tommy Dreamer hitting a pile driver to AJ Styles through a table. So Tommy Dreamer picks up the victory in this match, which I normally would hate Tommy Dreamer going over AJ Styles, but since they are doing the Bully Ray versus AJ Styles feud, even though I'm not going to like that feud, and I think AJ should be doing something a whole lot better than that, either teaming back with Christopher Daniels or being in the main event, at least it would make sense for him actually losing here so they can have something to, further the whole Bully Ray versus AJ Styles feud. So this match, I would give it about 2 stars, just like a lot of these matches on here. Just a watchable match, not a terrible match, but just a lot of these were not pay-per-view quality matches, as you're seeing when I'm going through them and my thoughts on them. Then the next matchup was Jeff Jarrett and Karen Jarrett versus Kurt Angle and Chyna. This actually wasn't as bad as what I was expecting. I was expecting, a completely terrible match. I was, thinking Chyna is going to be in there a whole lot more than what she was. And I think they booked this match in a good way where, Karen wasn't in there too much. Chyna wasn't in there too much. It was more or less just Jeff Jarrett and Kurt Angle in the ring. And them two have pretty good chemistry with each other. And they always do good with each other. So you saw some good back and forth action with them two. And obviously they kind of teased, for the whole time of the match, trying to get Chyna to come in there, and Karen did not want to get in there. And then towards the end of the match, you see Chyna, she hits the pedigree on Karen Jarrett, and then puts her in the ankle lock. Jeff Jarrett comes in the ring, basically trying to tell her and try to hold her hands to not have her tap out. And then Angle comes in from behind, puts the ankle lock on Jeff Jarrett, and then Karen Angle taps out. Not Karen Angle, but Karen Jarrett now taps out. And then Chyna and Kurt Angle pick up the victory in this match. Wasn't as bad as what I expected. And, Chyna, she was pretty rusty in the ring, but, she hasn't been in the ring a long time, so you kind of expected that. But it was not a terrible match. It was like probably, this match is probably like third best match on here. And, there's probably some people interested in seeing, Chyna in TNA, and especially since she hasn't been in a wrestling ring in so many times. So I know there's probably fans that were intrigued by seeing this, and it wasn't too bad of a match. And I don't expect to see Chyna to stick around. I think they'll probably have her at the next pay-per-view or maybe a month or two longer, but I don't expect her to really stick around in TNA, which I don't think that's the plan for her to stick around in TNA anyway. Even if she wanted to, I don't think TNA would want her to be a full-time wrestler in TNA. Then the next matchup was the main event. This was RVD versus Sting for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Anderson came out there first. He was on commentary the whole entire match. And this match with RVD and Sting actually was not that bad of a match. It was, probably next to the X Division title match, or this match was probably the best match. I would say the X Division title match was my favorite than this. This wasn't a bad match. You saw them, brawling in the crowd. They did some good stuff. RVD and Sting, good back and forth action. And, really, the only thing that was a little messed up in this match was at the end, not RVD, but Sting was trying to get RVD into the death drop. RVD kind of botched that. Then he did another one, so Sting retains the championship as expected. I don't think anyone thought RVD was going to win this. Then Anderson comes to the ring. Pay-per-view cuts off, so obviously we're going to have Anderson versus Sting at Slammiversary, unless TNA does something on the Impacts before Slammiversary where Anderson loses his number one contender shot, or they switch it into a triple threat or a four-way or something like that. So that's what we're going to see there. So this pay-per-view, I probably could give it about a 5 out of 10, maybe a 5.5 out of 10. Below average pay-per-view from TNA, but I think going into this, you look at the card, you shouldn't expect it much from this, and especially this pay-per-view is in between, Lockdown and Slammiversary. So right there, TNA's not going to try that hard, and they're pretty much booked this as a throwaway pay-per-view, and that's what it's supposed to basically meant to be. It's not to be meant to be anything else than that. And you had a pretty good world title match. I enjoyed it. It was a whole lot better than what I was expecting. I would give that probably 2 and 3/4 stars, maybe even 3 stars. The X Division title match I enjoyed. Just like I said, the ending was a little weak, and I thought the match should have been given a little more time. And the stuff, seeing Chyna back in TNA and seeing her back in the wrestling ring, was at least somewhat, intriguing to see, and I think that probably did get some fans interested in seeing the show, seeing just what she would do and how she would perform in the ring. And like I said, they booked that mixed tag match in a way where they at least made it a watchable match where it wasn't anything too terrible. Even though the whole, this whole Jarrett, Karen and Jeff Jarrett versus Angle feud is just going way too far. They just need to end it. They keep on dragging it out. You would think that maybe after Lockdown, sometime maybe after Slammiversary they might finally end this. They need to do something different with Jeff Jarrett and Kurt Angle, and this feud just needs to end. It's just dragging way too long out, way too far. And like I said, below average pay-per-view. It's not TNA's worst pay-per-view, so I wouldn't go that far, but it was definitely a below-average pay-per-view, nothing too special. And that's it for my TNA Sacrifice 2011 pay-per-view review. Peace.